Good morning, good afternoon, good evening for one and all who have joined here for today's web conference. Today's topic is Agile Application Lifecycle Management. We are going to have a good session for about an hour today as talking about Agile Application Lifecycle Management. This is brought to you by the Vivid India chapter as well as the Agile Special Interest Group. Both of them are indeed combining this to deliver this particular session. You can always visit us at vividworldwide.org. I'm your host, Suresh GP. I'm a business consultant with HP Software Professional Services and also the Bangalore chapter leader for Vivid. And today's presenter is Manish Gupta. And I'm pretty excited to have Manish, who's the product manager of HP Software here. A brief introduction about Manish. Manish is the solution marketing manager for HP Software Applications Delivery Management Portfolio in APJ. He works with customers, partners, and HP field teams to help grow mindshare and business for HP Software. He has been in the IT industry for over 13 years with primary focus on IT management solutions. He has held different roles in HP Software sales and alliance organization over the last 8 years in India. He has worked in technical roles as pre-sales and professional services consultant over many years and bring sound product knowledge on HP ALM solutions. So we are really excited to have Manish on the call today. A couple of housekeeping rules before we get started. This is a live session and it's being recorded. The recordings will be available to all Vivid members. If you have questions, please type questions in the question pane and we will take up the questions once the presenter completes his presentation so that we have about at least 10 to 15 minutes for the Q&A session. Just to give you a perspective of how we need to work upon, I think most of you are familiarized. But just to reiterate, you have a webinar control panel where you can actually ask the questions. You can toggle view window between full screen and window mode as you require, and you can type in the questions. Okay, so with no further ado, I would hand it over to Manish to take over. And hope you all have a great session. Over to you, Manish.
Yeah, thanks, Suresh. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all. So this session, I'm going to talk about Agile Application Lifecycle Management. And the fundamental theme that we are bringing here is the importance of bringing velocity and quality together to the table. How do we balance velocity and quality in the effort of delivering modern composite applications? Here's a brief agenda. Just bear with me for a second, please. Here's a brief agenda of what I'm going to present today. So we'll start talking about the paradigm shift in application delivery. Then we will talk about the challenges that are associated with scaling Agile in enterprise, followed with introduction to some of the tools that we have brought to the market, especially Agile Manager for project management. We'll also talk about its integrations with HP Quality Center and ALM, which are a unique differentiator for us in the market. Followed by that, I will talk about continuous testing and how do we enable that in the Agile delivery. And finally, the tools and technologies that HP brings to market for test automation and virtualization so that this agility can be enabled in the enterprise. So first, talking about the market and the shift in the paradigm of how applications are released. So we are continuously seeing an exponential increase in the velocity of application releases. So the number of releases which were, as few as once a quarter is now gradually increasing to almost 2 to 3 releases a month, which now analysts are predicting will grow to almost 120 releases per application per annum by the year 2020. And this is all driven by the need of businesses to remain competitive. Today, applications are, provide the core functionality for the businesses. And being agile, being able to bring applications and releases faster to market is a big competitive differentiator. It is also enabled by changes in technology, especially today with mobile technologies. People are able to access applications from anywhere, from any platform. Cloud technologies and internet technologies have enabled applications to be quickly built, deployed, and consumed. And other trends like social and analytics are also creating this great churn in the environment and the application environments, which is calling for this high velocity in the enterprise to release applications as quickly as possible. And here in this screen, you can see an example of how applications evolve over a period of time. Here is a typical application that is built, and then it goes through releases, minor and major changes as it lives through its life cycle of years and years. And the promise that Agile brings to the enterprise can really be summed up in terms of the improvements it brings in terms of aligning IT and business, since feedback is quicker to the IT teams from the business teams. They can make course corrections, and in turn it improves the quality as feedback comes early. Defects can be fixed quicker, and the overall quality of the application increases. Of course, when we deliver applications in short sprints in terms of the Agile terminology, we are also accelerating the time to market, which is the fundamental aim of increasing velocity. And through the efficiencies gained in this overall process, we are also able to lower the costs. So with that, I'd just like to reiterate that true agility demands velocity and quality both. We cannot sacrifice one for the other. And this is the fundamental premise based on which HP brings solutions to the market that you'll hear about in this presentation. So now let's start understanding what are the challenges, what are the impediments to achieving this goal of balancing velocity and quality. And HP being a market leader for years and years in the quality space, and now increasingly becoming a player in the Agile application lifecycle management space, our best practices, our experience, our thousands of customers that we interact with, we have come up with some of the key areas that are impediments in achieving this goal. And we have classified them into these 4 areas. One is the silos in the organization. This is the #1 cause of inefficiency when it comes to diverse teams. Typically, any large application or medium-sized application projects involves the business users, the business analysts, the developers, the testers, project managers. And all these people, they contribute in the effort of delivering applications, but the silos in these organizations can really lead to miscommunication, the blame games that happen in organizations, and ultimately the inefficiencies that can lead to poor results in application delivery. The next area I want to talk about is the dependencies in the environment itself. Today, when we talk about cloud-based composite applications, applications are no longer monoliths. They are assembled with services and components that could be derived from in-house or external vendors. And all these put together, they enable this composite architecture of applications with the intention of making components more reusable, so that there is less rework, so that there are efficiencies gained by reutilizing some of the components that have already been built, and ultimately leading to agility. Now, how do these dependencies come in the way of building applications faster? While this composite architecture was supposed to enable agility, building development and test environments, especially with services and components which may be not easily accessible during development and testing, which may be expensive to access if they are, say, on a legacy mainframe kind of system, which may be costly to access if they are hosted by a third-party vendor on a cloud environment. All these dependencies can actually lead to a lot of inefficiencies and loss of velocity. The third area is the manual effort. We've been addressing the manual effort in the software delivery lifecycle for ages through our test automation solution, and I want to re-emphasize how automation can come in and help remove the manual efforts wherever possible. So as HP Application Lifecycle Management Solutions, our effort is to automate as much as possible in the lifecycle so that efficiencies can be gained. And finally, the information gaps that exist between diverse systems and the information that remains obscure just because it cannot be harnessed in time for decision making also comes in the way. And today with HP Application Lifecycle Management Solutions, we want to address all these 4 areas that I'm going to talk about. So to address the impediments caused due to the silos in the organization, what we really need is collaboration between teams and enable teams to come together to share information and have access to a common version of the truth so that the efficiencies can be gained in this process. The dependencies that I talked about with respect to the third-party systems, the external components and services that are becoming more and more prevalent with cloud-based architectures and composite applications, these can be addressed through technologies for virtualizing services. The manual efforts can be resolved, can be overcome by automating, and automation with respect to testing is something I will delve upon, and how it can be achieved in the agile delivery process through continuous integration will be a focus in this presentation. And finally, the analytics and insight are really important to get rid of the inefficiencies caused due to the information gaps. So one by one, we'll talk about these 4 areas. The first area that I'm going to talk about is really the collaboration and the analytics and insights that are required to overcome the impediments for velocity and quality. So as we begin talking about this collaboration and the visibility and insight, let me just go back and discuss quickly about how Agile really started. The roots of Agile really are in small startups, in small project teams who wanted to achieve results really quickly. So they set up small, nimble teams, typically co-located, and they would typically be working on a single stack, maybe building an e-commerce or a web portal. They were simple workflows, small teams, which really made it easy for people to adopt agile methodologies and release quickly. But when we talk about the enterprise, this is where there's a big difference between the small setups, the startups, versus an enterprise which is already established with respect to procedures and workflows. They already have globally distributed teams in different geographies, and they do not have a single stack to work on, but really work on heterogeneous technologies that could be, Java stack and .NET and even ERP stacks in the organization that need to be addressed. And increasingly, people are finding that, they have complex projects which are interdependent on each other. So an e-commerce portal might be integrating with a back-end ERP system. The ERP might be integrating with the channels or distribution-based application, and so on and so forth. So managing these large, complex teams, procedural in nature, and still wanting to achieve the promise of Agile in the enterprise is what we address through Enterprise Agile Solutions and the Application Lifecycle Management Solution from HP. Now, when we are wanting to achieve this goal of collaboration and being able to visualize and gain insight into the application delivery process, what we really need is a system that can span the end-to-end processes, that can connect the information in diverse systems. So while we are talking about a system that can enable these processes in the application lifecycle, we are also looking to become a hub which can federate information from diverse systems like your source code management systems and build management systems that are used in the development process, so that information can be bubbled up into dashboards that can be utilized for making informed decisions. And these systems are not just systems of records anymore, not just databases that are holding information, but we also talk about today systems of engagement that enable collaboration between users and to the extent of enabling collaboration in the form of social interaction that we are getting used to more and more. So the Enterprise Agile is all about addressing the challenges that I just talked about. So the enterprise needs visibility and collaboration, which are historically not possible because of the silos, the distributed teams, and the scale at which the organization needs it. And how HP today helps is by bringing a universal visibility into the tasks, the metrics, and the progress in the application lifecycle. And also, as I mentioned, the integrations with the development ecosystems, which will enable the insights to all the developers, the testers, and the project managers to achieve the objective of velocity and quality. Now, as we talk about velocity, I keep emphasizing about quality because this is where our roots are in. As HP Software and Mercury erstwhile, we are leaders in providing quality management for the enterprise. And the quality management system, the quality center or application lifecycle management, integrated with Agile Manager, which is the solution that I will just introduce, will help us in the process of continuous testing and also enabling visibility across all the metrics across development and testing. And last but not the least, the challenge that today exists with respect to development not connecting with upstream project management and downstream operations is today quickly becoming a bottleneck that people are solving with principles like DevOps. So integrations with portfolio planning upstream through our integrations with PPM and downstream integration with Performance Anywhere, which is a tool for monitoring performance of applications with Agile Manager, are areas through which we bring about the complete lifecycle agility. So here's a quick overview of all the solutions that we bring to the market to empower Agile teams, which are composed of your business analysts, Scrum Masters, or the product owners, the developers, testers, performance testers. And as you can see, the solutions span from project management solution for Agile project management, requirements definition and management, then solutions for managing the development and testing, and finally, tools for automating the functional and performance testing, tools for virtualizing services, and then enabling the customizable social workflows through our collaboration applications. So one by one, I'll talk about these solutions. So let's introduce to you HP Agile Manager. It's a new solution. It's been in the market for over a year now. So if you have not heard about it, this is a solution that is a core Agile project management solution for the enterprise. This is where you manage your Agile projects, your user stories, your backlogs, the sprints, manage the actual tasks, the work that the development needs to do, the defect management. And all these tasks are available in the IDEs that the developers use directly, like Eclipse and Visual Studio. And the key differentiator that we bring with Agile Manager with respect to some of the competing tools in the market is the development analytics. So remember, I talked about impediments in velocity that arise due to information gaps. And the analytics that we provide through ALI, or Application Lifecycle Intelligence, really connects all the diverse development systems in the organization to give visibility to the development management and the QA management to understand exactly what are the builds that are successful, where the user stories have been built, are the developers working on the right priorities or not, is testing working on the user stories, are they testing the test cases that are assigned to user stories that are high priority, that are part of this build. And once you follow a process for test automation using ALM and Quality Center, the same in ALI, Application Lifecycle Intelligence, is also the technology that we use in HP ALM. Here's a screenshot of what Agile Manager looks like. It's a great UI. It's a true web UI. What you're seeing on your screen is in the Chrome browser. And this is typically how team members will access a digital task board to manage their day-to-day tasks. So once you have defined your product backlog and assigned that to sprints and assigned it to releases and sprints, Then the users are assigned their specific user stories, or the developers are assigned the user stories that they start building on, which they can further break down into tasks. So what you're seeing is a task board that is very typically used in an Agile project. And you can manage the units of work that each and every team member is doing. And also at the top right corner, you can see how the progress summary automatically bubbles up. So that gives the instant visibility into the project work that's going on. Just to give you a feel of application lifecycle intelligence, which we call as the Dev Insight, you can see on the top of the screen, is where the information comes in from the various build management and the source code management systems that are used in the projects. And the developers, as they continue to do or execute their tasks for development in their IDEs, they are automatically able to connect with Agile Manager to take the tasks that are assigned to them. And as and when they complete those tasks and check in the code into the source code systems, which is then automatically picked up by build management systems for continuous integration, all the statistics that are related to the user stories and defects get automatically populated into this nice dashboard that gives us the insight with respect to the priorities that the organization is working on, with respect to any unauthorized code changes that might be going on in the project, and so on and so forth. So lots of use cases of how you can actually put into effect application lifecycle intelligence technology to make informed decision in the application lifecycle. Here's a screen that shows you the entire ecosystem, and this is an ecosystem that is gradually evolving as more and more partners, they align with HP to get on this bandwagon of HP ALM to come and be part of the ALI ecosystem, the developer analytics ecosystem. And you can see the leading IDEs, the source code management systems, the build systems, even the static code analysis that you do today with Coverity, or even static security analysis that you do with Fortify. That information can be shared within the application lifecycle intelligence technology to be part of the ALI reports that provide us the insight and the visibility to change that's happening on an ongoing basis. Quickly, I want to take a minute to reflect upon the core capabilities of application lifecycle management that we have been bringing to market for ages now. And Quality Center and ALM lead in the space of test management, which is the core test management capability for automated testing, for manual testing, for defining your test plan, executing testing. But not just that, but also managing and defining requirements and managing the defects with complete traceability to all the testing assets, the requirements and the defects, but also, as I just talked about, traceability to code and build through the application lifecycle intelligence technology. Now, where ALM also stands out with respect to Quality Center is its ability to improve more efficiencies through version, through the sharing of assets and creating standardized templates and workflows that can be applied across multiple projects, and its ability to plan and track projects as well as share assets between projects. So this is a key area of efficiency that ALM provides our Quality Center, but regardless, the core test management functionality is what is the most important function of Quality Center, which is today more and more increasingly used with respect to test automation integrated into test management. And the key point I want to bring out in this discussion is the ability to sync Agile Manager with HP Quality Center and ALM so that the enterprise is able to continue to balance velocity and quality. So while Agile Manager would be the tool to do the day-to-day execution of the development tasks, and Quality Center becomes the platform to manage the testing activity, it is important to synchronize the requirements and the defects between these two systems. So the user stories that the developers are working on in Agile Manager become requirements in ALM of QC, against which the testers would write test cases and execute the test cases. Same way with defects, that the Agile Manager tool holds the defects that the developers are working on, can be synchronized with defects in QC. But more importantly, the test data and metrics that are captured in Quality Center would then be sent back to Agile Manager so that the developers also have a view of what test cases have been executed and what metrics have been achieved. So this is a complete 360-degree traceability, and I'm just showing you here a screenshot of how a test that failed in ALM or Quality Center against a particular requirement. This was actually a requirement that was synced from Agile Manager as a user story, and you can see this is on the next screen that that same test case, the status of that test or the metric against that test shows up against the user story in Agile Manager. So what you see on your screen right now is the screen for Agile Manager, and the test that was executed in ALM, which you just saw in the previous slide, that failed test, its result, it can be synchronized back to Agile Manager. So it is a complete synchronization, a real-time synchronization of the requirements, defect, and test metrics that is enabling a true picture, a single pane of glass view, and a single version of truth to all the team members in the organization, which is becoming more and more important as we move forward. Here's another screenshot that you can see of how the requirements in ALM or Quality Center are synchronized with user stories in Agile Manager. So what you see on the top are requirements, are the user stories in Quality Center in Agile Manager, and you can see on the right side the status of the test results, the direct cover status, which is what you also have as information in HP ALM. So once again, that single version of truth. So with that, we just talked about enabling collaboration, the visibility, and having the analytics and insights into the whole software delivery lifecycle, into the process, so that efficiencies can be improved, so that quality can be improved. The next area that I'm going to talk about is automation. Now, as I said, this automation is a way that we address the inefficiencies and the impediments to velocity that arise from all the manual effort in the software delivery lifecycle. So what you see here is results from the latest World Quality Report. It's a joint publication, an annual publication between HP and Capgemini. So this year's report, we really focused on continuous delivery, continuous integration, and how testing fits into this process. And you can see that some of the top things that emerged from this study this year about continuous testing and testing in the Agile world is really people are looking for, the first thing they're looking for is an approach. What is the best practice to do testing in the Agile development world? Right? People are still experimenting a lot. Sometimes they're not even testing, which is really not the objective of being Agile. Agile means being able to bring a good quality product as fast as possible to market. Also, the inability to apply test automation is some of the top results of this study. Difficulty in identifying the areas that people should focus on for testing, as well as the testing tools that can enable continuous testing. These are some of the top 4 issues that came out of this report. So let's talk about an approach. Now, as I said, we have a vast experience of more than a decade in leadership with test automation, and people have been applying test automation with our tools. Some of you might remember it used to be WinRunner about 10 years back, and then we brought QTP to market. And today we are talking about not just GUI testing or functional testing at the GUI level, but we're also talking about component and API testing with our unified functional testing offering, or UFT. So in this example, you can see how typical sprint progresses. And what we are really talking about in terms of approach is the S+1 rule. What does that mean? That means that in any sprint, automation should not lag by more than 1 sprint. So if you are in sprint 2, you should be automating all the components and the GUIs that were developed in the previous sprint. Now, we are going to go back to this picture later on when I talk about virtualization. So, but imagine here you are in a particular sprint, the GUI is not ready for a certain business process, maybe till sprint 4. How can you enable continuous testing? This is where you can start building GUI tests as well as component tests for components which do not have a front end yet, and even business process tests which are not built or which are not ready end to end. You can start testing at a component level, and that way you can enable automation within that sprint for all the components that were built in the previous sprint. Now, the idea is that as you move forward in every sprint, you want to be able to do regression for all the features that are built in the previous sprint as well, just to make sure that nothing got disrupted in the subsequent sprints. So when we talk about making testing work, making automation work in the Agile world, we are really talking about continuous testing. And the benefits that we can easily arrive at from this are, first of all, reducing the cost of testing, which is what automation promises. Instead of doing the same manual effort repeatedly, if you can automate it, it can reduce cost for you. It can speed up the delivery of applications for you. But what's also important in speeding up is the ability to have automated development and testing lab support, as well as the support for continuous integration that is taking more and more prevalence in Agile delivery today. And finally, the risk mitigation by improving the quality or by reducing the quality risk by having a planned approach to testing and quality management in the Agile lifecycle becomes important. So the ideal picture for continuous testing would really involve various stages of testing. The first thing that you see on the top is ET, or exploratory testing. This is a testing that is very common in Agile today. There are no authorized documented test plans, but people are still creative enough to go and explore the areas of the application and do exploratory testing. The next thing is the continuous integration, where the builds are automatically captured. The code is taken from source code systems, and continuous builds are created to make sure that all the areas of the application integrate well. How do you enable continuous integration testing? I'll speak about in the next slide. But what I just talked about, the S+1 rule, was to enable the regression. The regression testing from sprint to sprint. This is where automation with tools like unified functional testing can really come in. And finally, we will talk about longevity testing, which could be independent of the sprint cycle, but it is part of the long-term risk mitigation approach that an IT organization undertakes to enable higher quality applications and minimize risk to business. So to talk about the HP tools that are helpful in these 4 areas of testing. So let's talk about exploratory testing in a little bit more detail. So as I said, exploratory testing involves testing applications while there are no documented test cases. But having tools like Sprinter can help people do exploratory testing more efficiently. So while you are doing that exploratory test, it is important to capture the test results and be able to document that test and share that information back with the developments in a readable way, in a way that the developer can reproduce that defect is of importance. And HP Sprinter can help us do exactly that by documenting and capturing the testing process, the exploratory test, and also documenting it back to Quality Center or ALM so that it can be later used for test planning, for test execution. But also today, Sprinter has capability to create automated tests out of the manual test cases that were executed within Sprinter. The next thing is the ability to execute continuous testing in the continuous integration process itself. And today the leading continuous integration systems that people use are Hudson or Jenkins. And today the capability to integrate the automated testing tools like unified functional testing and load balancer performance testing, having the ability to execute these tests through the continuous integration process itself is an important capability. So while the build is created, we have plugins for Hudson and Jenkins in both UFT and LoadRunner by which You can include certain smoke tests or integration tests as part of the continuous integration build process. And you can also leverage the integration with ALM, the lab management module in ALM, to easily provision continuous integration. Next, we talk about regression testing. Now, this is something that is common to both the waterfall world and the agile world. We have been doing regression test automation for ages now in the waterfall delivery. Same way when we talk about the S+1 rule in the sprint cycles, in the sprints, this is where automating the test cases and having them as part of subsequent sprints to do regression on stuff that was built in previous sprints is an important area to focus on to bring about high quality applications. And HP Unified Functional Testing is, as I said, a leader in the market when it comes to automating testing. But what we also emphasize here is the capabilities around BPT, or business process testing, that can help further accelerate building automated test cases. And last but not the least, for the longevity testing, managing the entire testing lifecycle through application lifecycle management, ability to share testing assets between people, ability for different personas like developers, testers, and project managers to collaborate on a single version of truth, and having social capabilities to interact and bring about efficiencies, automation of workflows as much as possible for easy handoffs and digitally captured handoffs in the organization can all lead to this goal of achieving relentless automation from sprint to sprint to enable the enterprises to get more agile. A quick word on continuous testing when it comes to performance testing. As I talked about the capabilities to integrate with continuous integration systems for LR, I also want to emphasize the ability to run unit tests. Today, as developers build their code, they also start writing unit test cases, which today we can leverage, and you can use it within Load Runner to run these unit test scripts as a load test to stress certain areas of the application. You no longer have to wait for the application to be entirely built so that you can record the scripts in Virtual User Generator. But today, as I said, we have capability to enable earlier load testing in the cycle by enabling unit testing and, of course, integration, continuous integration systems executing load tests. A quick word about mobile. As mobile applications become more and more prevalent, we have introduced very innovative ways of capturing mobile traffic, whether it's through proxy recording or whether it's through a mobile recording application published in the Android Play Store. And of course, the ability for communities of our users of LoadRunner to collaborate with each other through a community, through HP Live Network integrated into Virtual User Generator is today giving us very good results for continuous load testing. Finally, I want to talk about enabling velocity and quality through virtualization technologies. Now, remember this technology for service virtualization, what we talked about is really to overcome the impediments in velocity that arise due to the dependencies in the system, the cloud and composite architectures that we are talking about today, where applications are no longer monoliths, but reliant on other systems, third-party systems, or even other services within the same organization to enable the end-to-end business process. And especially as teams become more agile and they build these components in bits and pieces, there are also times when these components may not be ready till later in the sprint. So it is not just about availability of these systems, but it's also availability due to systems not even having been developed. So what you see on the screen here is that traditional testing focus would come later in the sprints, especially for system integration testing, where the end-to-end system would be ready and integrated with other components in the environment. And you can see the legend here for services that are developed, whether it's a GUI, a business process. A gray shaded one is the component which is stable. So this leads to a lot of waiting time earlier in the sprints. And what we really want to do with respect to testing early in the life cycle is to be able to virtualize as many services as possible earlier in the sprint. So what you see as the blue triangle appearing on some of these boxes are not services and components that are built, but they have been virtualized using technologies for virtualization, like HP Service Virtualization. Now the benefit of doing this is that now the components like S3 and S2 that you see on your screen, they are available earlier in the sprint, means that business processes like business process 1 and 2 that depend on these components and services can be now tested earlier in the cycle, earlier sprints. So this is what we are really enabling by virtualization, is to remove the bottlenecks that arise due to dependency of systems so that gaps can be filled early by virtualizing areas of technologies or services which are either not built or which we do not have access to because they are either hosted by a third party, expensive to access, or a back-end system which is not just available during the development and testing cycle. So having the capability to virtualize these constraints helps teams move faster, test earlier in the life cycle. So the objective of bringing a good quality application faster to market, both these objectives are achieved. Because today, now with virtualizing technologies, we are able to test early, which means that quality will improve since you are able to test. And since you are able to test early, the time to market of applications will also improve. So with that, we just wrapping up here. And I want to highlight that today the HP Enterprise Agile solutions, we are unique in various ways. Our core principles are around alignment. How do we unify the delivery across all the technologies and ALM roles? So HP as a vendor is not just limited to a particular technology stack, but as you have probably known HP for years now, we are technology agnostic, support a wide variety of technology platforms, perhaps the broadest. And all the roles in the ALM organization, in the application delivery process, can collaborate, can get aligned behind the single goal of achieving velocity and quality. Our solutions are adaptable. So whether an organization today is agile or whether it's waterfall or a combination of both, which is typically what we are seeing in large enterprises today, that some projects are agile, some projects are still following waterfall. Our solutions are adaptable to the needs of the various methodologies, as well as connecting with a broad ecosystem of technologies in the development lifecycle, especially as I talked about the build management, IDEs, the source code systems. Having this integration across heterogeneous platforms to bring about common intelligence visible to people in real time makes our solutions very adaptable to the needs of all the users. And of course, our solutions help accelerate the delivery of modern applications in terms of improving the quality, whether it's through automated testing, virtualization of technologies, lab management, with the aim of achieving velocity. The solutions that help accelerate the application lifecycle to get rid of the manual effort. With these three basic objectives, or with these three basic principles, HP delivers a balanced view of velocity and quality in the enterprise. So to wrap up, here's an overall picture of the portfolio. Talked about HP Agile Manager to manage the day-to-day execution of Agile projects, HP ALM and Performance Center for managing the testing, test planning, test execution, requirements and defects synchronized with Agile Manager, and both integrating with the vast development ecosystems, coupled with the automation for GUI, for APIs, for manual testing, as well as accelerators for various application environments, testing enabled for mobile applications, and virtualization of services, all put together with performance testing solutions like load runner, diagnostics, bring about a very integrated suite of products, of solutions for achieving agile application lifecycle management. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your time today. And for more information, you can always go to www.hp.com/go/ALM. So thanks again, and back to you, Suresh.
Thanks, Manish, for that enlightening session about Agile Application Lifecycle Management. What I really liked about was, it started off what was the trend earlier, looking back what it was and how this has actually changed, the whole paradigm shift from where we started off, the old windrunner days to what we are talking about, UFT, unified functional testing, and the kind of rapid, need in terms of the number of releases that are going to go about 120 per annum for an app is something very kind of encouraging there. At this moment, if you have any questions, you can use the questions window to post a question that we can take it up. We still have a couple of 10 minutes time for taking up a Q&A. So if you have any questions to Manish on whatever in terms of application lifecycle management that he discussed, you can post your questions. So we'll give a couple of minutes for people to pen down the questions if they have any. And in the interim, I had one question, Manish. You did talk about a lot about, and one of the things that I'm also curious, and I've heard it from a lot of other customers, on mobility, right? I mean, with mobile apps being released, in a jiffy. And do we have use cases, or do you see a lot of customers asking specifically on this mobile utility testing and how UFT can help? Can you share some insights on how this mobility space testing is in the market and how HP's product is aligned to meet their expectation?
Sure, Suresh. And just to give you a little bit more information, there is a webinar that's scheduled for, I believe, December 6th, which is on mobile application lifecycle management, where we are going to talk in detail about these solutions. But yes, you're right. With more and more applications going mobile, I think statistics from Gartner say that by 2015, 4 out of 5 application projects are going to be for mobile applications. So yes, we are seeing a lot of demand from customers to help build and test mobile applications. So UFT Mobile is the flagship test automation product for testing mobile applications. So people are familiar with UFT for automated testing. The same framework, the same tool gets extended for testing mobile applications. But also the bigger challenge, or one big challenge in mobile applications, is the management of the devices itself, which is changing at a very rapid pace. So while we have automation to do the automated testing, the solution encompasses a cloud-based device management solution as well, so that UFT Mobile not just automates the test cases, but also gives teams to share devices amongst each other and create a cloud-like environment, which can be today on-premise of the customer, or it could be a hosted cloud solution through which the devices can be accessed and reserved for the duration of the testing. And of course, the capabilities for automation are really, really superior. You know that HP testing tools have always stood out in the market, and we have the market-leading technology to cover the various platforms, whether it's Android or Apple. The other thing that I just want to mention in context of today's webinar would be that most mobile projects are agile in nature. So, the releases are frequent. We have all these smartphones, and we see updates to mobile applications almost every other week. So these applications are really built in using the agile methodologies, and HP Agile Manager can be a very good fit for people who are developing mobile or working on mobile projects, because by default, they would be using agile methodology as much as possible.
Yeah, thanks, Manish, on that. So if you could just, I think we had a couple of slides that we wanted to show them for the people in terms of opt-in. So if you could just share that slide on the last couple of slides on the opt-in part, where we can tell if the people are interested to take a survey and then opt in for an Amazon card. So for all the viewers and people who attended the session, we thank you for your time today, and we also have an opportunity for all of you to register and enter to win a $50 US $50 US Amazon gift card for your survey results. So if it would be great if you could spend a few minutes of time to actually go there and register yourself, and who knows, you would be one of the lucky participants to win a $50 Amazon card. And we sincerely appreciate all of your people to take your valuable time and come over here. Hope you have enjoyed the session, and as Manish rightly said, we have another session that is coming up on December 6th, which is on mobile application testing. I think that will be also useful for people to understand what is the latest trends in mobile testing and how HP's Agile Manager and the suite of products that could help you to deliver much better quality of services using mobile testing.
And Suresh, I believe a question came into the question panel.
Oh, okay, is it? Okay, I'll just probably check that. Oh yeah, okay. So the question was, can you share some of your ideas about test-driven testing? That's a question by Syed. It asks about any ideas about, some or more ideas about test-driven testing.
Is it test-driven testing or?
Yeah, test-driven testing.
Test-driven development that we've been hearing about.
Okay. I think probably he's mentioning that as well.
Yeah, so test-driven development is, one of the ways that today Agile teams are focused on, bringing applications faster. It's one of the variants of the various Agile methodologies. But what I want to say in this context here is that for us, the tools are, a way to enable as many methodologies and as many frameworks as possible. So we make a conscious effort that our tools don't get subscribed to a particular thought process or a particular way of doing things, but rather the tool should have enough flexibility to adapt to whichever methods that teams today adopt to ultimately achieve the goal of providing agility to the business, to provide high quality applications to the business users. And this is where we come in and talk about solutions that can span across methodologies, technologies, frameworks, processes. So that would be a short answer to a particular question in that regard.
Thanks, Manish. I think it was all about test-driven development. So hope we had that insight sent to site. So as I told earlier, the webinar slides as well as the recording would be available, posted on the website, and you must be able to get a copy of it. And please take some time to register and win a chance for a $50 Amazon gift card. And with that in place, any more closing things before we wrap up, Manish? Anything else that you want to?
No, I just want to thank the audience again today, and it was really good talking to you all.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Manish, and thanks the entire team here who have taken the time out. And I hope you found something useful as takeaways from today's session. And this will be posted. And if you have any questions, please do reach out to us as Vivit. And we hope to see you again on December 6th for the next webinar on mobile testing. Until then, have a great day, and talk to you all soon there.